Good morning. Good morning, good morning, and good morning. I'm going to introduce our featured speaker, which I'll do a quick little summary of how this relationship came to be. It was in October of Zach's sophomore year. I was new to the district. I got an email because I came in from a different district who was we were a Google district, and I was kind of bringing the Google-ness with me. And Zach was very concerned about this Google integration in Sheboygan. So he sent me a very articulated email and said, why are you getting away from the Microsoft world and things like that? And so I said, you know what, I just need to sit down and meet with Zach. And so I went over to Sheboygan North High School. I sat with Zach and explained to him the benefits, especially the collaborative benefits of Google at that time. And we had a really good conversation, and he was mature way beyond his years. And it was at that time where we kind of built a friendship. And we've watched him grow throughout his high school years, as you can see. And he's probably going to kill me for putting these pictures up there because he doesn't know that I had them. But just, the growth as a young man, also military, thank you for your service. And now he actually, the funny twist in this is he now works for Google. So that's even more funny. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Zach up, and I'm going to let him talk to you for a little while.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike, for the introduction. I have the microphone now, so I have some time to get revenge on those photos. Good morning, everyone. It's exciting to be here with you all this morning. There we go. Got my remote all set. Like Mike said, TechKnow's been going on for 6 years now, and I believe I've been part of every one of them, which has been a huge honor to bring some cybersecurity knowledge to all of you every year. And looking out this morning and sitting over there for the last couple minutes, seeing how big this event has grown is really incredible. I was at a conference last week in Austin, Texas. So I'm riding that conference energy high of filling up your cup of knowledge and wisdom and knowledge transfer and all that kind of stuff. So hoping that continues here today. So now that you heard and saw all wonderful pictures from my childhood, I'm going to tell you another story. In 2001, I was 4 years old and in preschool on the north side of town. I'm sure that makes some of you feel old. I apologize. And 1985 stories about Sears here. Didn't exist yet to have those experiences. But I was on the north side of town in preschool, and our preschool teacher had posed a question to our class, something like, who is the current president? That you wouldn't know a preschooler, or wouldn't expect a preschooler to know the answer to that question. However, I did, so I raised my hand, answered correctly, and she really wondered, how did he know the answer to that question? So, of course, she asked and said, hey, Zachary, how did you know the answer to that question? And as innocently and confidently as a 3- or 4-year-old can do, I stood up and said, well, it's easy. I just looked it up on the internet. And like Mike said, it's come full circle because I'm sure I would love to see the surprise on her face if she knew I worked for Google today. But I tell this story because it was really a precursor of the world to come, right? In the last 25 or 30 years, we've gone from overhead projectors and transparency sheets to Microsoft's Office and Windows XP and Clippy and PowerPoint, clip art, all that kind of stuff, which really was the foundation of modern computing as we know it today. In 2008, we had smartboards that came to the education scene, which really revolutionized your classrooms. They were the first time that you had an interactive digital whiteboard available for all of you, that if you're math teachers, you could work through math problems with your students and have them interact and be engaged in their learning. You could show videos a lot easier. You didn't have to go down the hall and reserve that cart and all those types of things, bring it into your classroom, try to hook it up. It didn't work 3 times, ask someone for help, right? You had all that right there, so you knew what you had available and could plan for it. And then you had iPads that came in 2010, just a few years later, and revolutionized the world as we know it today, right? Modern computing right in your hands. brought into technology for a one-to-one experience, but really kind of fell short because it was great for a consumption device. They were a nightmare to manage. I'm sure Chris still has nightmares about those. But you could download some apps on your iPad and give your students some one-to-one type experience. But they fell short because you couldn't actually create content, so it was only things that you gave to your students, right? They didn't have that keyboard, that laptop-type platform where they could then go and create. So my now colleagues at Google answered all of our prayers and desires in 2014 with Google Apps for Education, as it was known then, now Google Workspace for Education, as well as the Chromebook. And this was really transformational, as Mike knows, and was very much part of that early testing of this because, like I said, iPads didn't allow students to come to the table and say, hey, here's what I'm capable of creating. Here's how I'm comprehending this. And with that platform of integration with Gmail and Drive, Google Docs, slides, all those types of things, it gave you as educators as well as students a uniform platform that you could all communicate on and work through together in collaboration. Chromebooks also set the stage for new tools that I'm sure many of you are using today, like Kahoot, quizzes, Pear Deck, all those types of things, because now your students have access to this technology just as much as you do, so you're able to integrate that in your classrooms. And as we look to where we are in the future today, we have things like Google Bard and Google's artificial intelligence, which I know there's several sessions about today. It's the new big thing. I heard all about it last week in Austin, as well as ChatGPT, which has definitely taken our news headlines by storm the last couple months. So in the digital world that we live in, there's many roles of teachers, right, in 2023. You're still navigating the landscape of education, and you're still those educators, right? Your main purpose is the knowledge transfer and teaching your students about all the things they need to know to be successful as young people coming into the world today. But you're also still mentors, right? You're serving as that role model for them as well. Someone that they can look up to and say, hey, I really enjoyed social studies. Tell me more about this, and find all the things that they're really interested in, which is definitely important. But now, as this technology has been ushered into your classrooms, you're also first-line tech support. Mostly for yourselves, because you go through these exercises, you make all this great stuff using these tools like Kahoot and quizzes, and maybe make a Google slide deck, and you put all this effort in. You say, hey, I'm embracing technology. Mike's going to be so proud of me, and all of the members of his team. Look at all this great stuff I did. I'm so excited to do this with my students. And at the last minute, your projector dies, or your computer doesn't work. And that's really frustrating, right? Because you took all this time and effort and energy and invested into it and want something to work, but it didn't. And then you have 30 students, maybe more, coming into your classrooms every day, bringing 30 devices with them, which, if there's any math teachers here, I'm not very good at it. But that exponentially increases the chances of things going astray. So now, all of a sudden, you put all this work in, all the effort, and one or two of your students can't participate because the Chromebook's dead, or it's not working. So now you're trying to figure that out on the fly of, hey, maybe you can shoulder surf with someone else or figure it out in that sense. But that's also really, really tough. Finally, your digital content creators. So I'm willing to argue that I'm probably, 1997 was when I was born, some of the last age group, probably plus or minus 5 years, that grew up in somewhat of an analog world. We got a taste of that with Hot Wheels cars and Legos, and coming still around today, right? But playing with all those different types of toys. And then as this technology got ushered in, I was in 5th grade, middle school, high school, and it was just as new to my age group as it was many of you. But now you have students coming into classrooms in kindergarten who knew how to look up Pooh Bear on an iPad when they were 3. And they are addicted to digital content in a way that we've never seen before. So now you're competing with social media and TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and all the YouTube videos that they love, whether they're really educational and fantastic or not. They know how to consume and learn in a digital format. So now you have to compete with that in the classroom and be digital content creators of your own. And that can be really challenging if that's not something you're used to. So the digital age has been characterized by this rapid influx of technology. And it's not all bad, right? Because we've seen how technology has transformed over the last 25 or 30 years. But at the same time, it's led to an increase in personalized learning opportunities with new tools that identify students who are struggling with content. And that gives you real-time feedback of, hey, maybe my students didn't understand this lesson I taught them. I need to go back and reteach that content. It also takes textbooks and the content in them that gets outdated in 3 or 4 years. But now you can have relevant content that's curated for your class in real time with real-time sources, so you can go beyond the static text that you have in a textbook. So the challenges of a digital age. And with all these improvements in technology and integration of technology, there come challenges. And each of you, are no stranger to them. You deal with them maybe sometimes every day or once a week, once a month in your classrooms. And they can be really frustrating when you're working through with this technology and it doesn't want to work. It's difficult to struggle to use a computer in the first place, then have to learn how to use that computer on a computer. That's like kind of a catch-22. It's like, where do I win? How do I win? Another thing that's really a challenge with technology is that many of you joined education because you actually genuinely enjoy working with students. And you love that face-to-face interaction with them and seeing them do well, or maybe they were struggling for a little bit and you and some other teachers got together and really helped them turn things around. And when you inject technology into that equation, sometimes it can feel impersonal. And this is something that I don't think is necessarily just education. We're dealing with this in tech as well. My team at Google is mostly remote. There's me that's down in North Carolina right now. A good friend of mine lives up in Green Bay. Several people are in Texas, and they're very proud of it, and make sure you know it every time you talk to them. Several are in Florida as well. So it's really hard for us to get together all the time. And that has challenges because we don't know each other as if we were in the office every day having those water cooler conversations, rubbing shoulders in the cafeteria at Google, where there's tremendous free food. And we don't have those opportunities. So that can be really tough. And how do you go about that? And I don't know that I have the answer for that in this presentation. But I think it's something that the industry as a whole needs to consider as we go forward. So building digital literacy skills. And I think this is just as important for all of you as educators, which is why you're all here today. And that's terrific. But I also think it's important for your students because as they go on to higher things, whether it's higher education or joining the military or maybe going right to the workforce, they need these digital skills to be successful on a day-to-day basis. And it's important that you have the resources to teach them as well as them having the resources they need to be successful. So when I think of digital literacy for each of you, I think of a quote that was making its way around LinkedIn and the organizational development space, like the self-help space a couple of years ago. And I think it went viral even for a little bit. But what happens if we train them and they leave? But worse, what happens if we don't and they stay? Right? So you have a fantastic opportunity here provided by Mike and his team for all of you to learn and grow. And we see this at Google. We see this when I was working in the federal consulting space. There's a lot of different organizations that all do the same thing, right? And the people who have the skills and the capabilities make those organizations more marketable, make them able to accomplish new things. So it's sometimes hard, right? Because they don't want to spend, hey, $5,000 to go to certification. That certification makes you a lot more marketable. And like, hey, I'm going to go jump ship for greener pastures. So that can be really, really challenging. But at the same time, you need to be able to continue and do this. So in the military, there's two different groups of people. There's the officers and the enlisted. The officers in the military are seen as the strategic overhead project managers. They're there for the 35,000-foot view. They're the ones who have the 6-month goal in mind of, hey, we're here now. We need to get to this point over here. How do we make that happen? The enlisted personnel are the ones who push all the buttons. They're the ones who are the mechanics turning the wrenches on the aircraft and the tanks and all those types of things. They're the ones who are intimate and are subject matter experts in everything that the military has and does. But in order to have those 6-month plans, that 35,000-foot view, and carry out the commander's intent, the officers need to be just as capable and technical as their enlisted counterparts without having that day-to-day interaction with these tools. And that's incredibly challenging for many of them. So I liken this to you as teachers who maybe don't have the same level of knowledge of all this technology like your students do, right? We talked about the 3-year-olds who are very capable of figuring out how an iPad works. But you still need to be able to communicate with them in this digital world and figure out, hey, we need to teach these kids. They really enjoy the digital space. They're going to need to know how to use technology. How do we accomplish that? So I can honestly say that even with me working in technology, working at the epicenter of it at Google, it's tough for my team even to stay relevant and stay on top of technology. My team specifically does a lot of consulting work. I work with a lot of federal agencies as well as Fortune 100s and 500s to help them with their security operations. So a lot of times we go into a newer organization and everybody does things a little bit differently. So our team group chat on Google Chat often looks like, hey, I'm working with a new client and they have this security tool maybe called Devo. Has anybody heard about this before? I'm like, maybe, don't know. Or someone says, hey, we're writing a recommendation for a client and they have something implemented in a way we haven't seen before. Does anybody seen anything like this in previous experience? And we started saying, hey, we're really sick of asking these questions and not having answers to these things. So what we did is we came up with this idea that every time we work with a new client, we create and save the collateral that we created from that client in a central repository. So we actually used Google Sites for this, which was a great time for us to join Google. And we put all those PowerPoints we have with clients, all those documents we create, and we have this whole database now of collateral. So that way when we say, hey, we have this new security tool, does anybody have info on this? We can say, hey, I have a one-page document I created for a client on that. And here you go. Plus, then you have the ability to reach out to that person who created that content and say, hey, I saw that you created this, have a little bit of experience with it. Any other things I need to know? Any other helpful hints or tips? And this has proven really successful for our team because now when we're able to work with those clients, it looks like we're able to hit the ground running. We're not as lost as that first person was. So all of you are teachers. You're great at creating content for your students. You have the skills and the capabilities to do things like this already. A cool story with this that just happened a couple weeks ago, maybe even 2 months ago now. I'd qualify to start categorizing it in months, was the MOVEit vulnerability. And if you're not familiar with MOVEit, it was essentially meant to be a secure file transfer system, kind of like Google Drive on steroids. But it was used by state agencies, federal agencies, healthcare, pretty much anyone that had any sort of sensitive information, lawyers' offices, all that kind of stuff with attorney-client privilege information. They were using this to send and save files. The Louisiana DMV got caught up in this. So if you have license plates, car registration, driver's license in Louisiana, your information got lost in this breach. So we were seeing a lot of our clients at Google getting hit by this. So several of us got together and created essentially a white paper, a 3 or 4 page guide on, hey, here's what we're seeing. These are the things you need to watch out for. This is what the possible impact to your organization could be. And here's some of the nitty-gritty technical details of what to look for in your organization to know you might have been compromised. About 3 or 4 days later, a very desperate individual from MOVEit reached out to us and said, hey, things are really tough for us right now, as you can probably imagine, but we love what you guys did, and we're asking for your permission to take this on our website and use it as our own remediation guide. So that was a huge win for us, and it really shows the impact that when you take the time to create some of this stuff, that it can have. Many of you who are leading those awesome breakout sessions here today are already doing this because you found the things that you're passionate about, the things in technology that are interesting to you, that have worked well, that you really enjoy, and you're sharing that with all of your peers. So this is really, really excellent that you're all doing that, and I ask you not to let that stop here today. Don't let that energy that you have, that you brought together for TechKnow here today, die, because you are sharing so much information with each other and making each other stronger because of it. This can also be really incredibly helpful if you feel overwhelmed by technology. So take bite-sized pieces of it. Maybe you say, hey, I really want to get good at Kahoot. So you say, I have maybe some vocabulary for foreign language class that you can take, and throw it into Kahoot and have an exercise with your students. And as you do that, take maybe Google Slides with 3 or 4 or 5 slides. Doesn't have to be a lot. And just take some screenshots and say, hey, here's how I did this. This is what the implementation was of getting it all set up and sorted out. And at the end, the students really enjoyed it. One thing I'd recommend is, hey, maybe make sure that you have good control of your class beforehand because they get really excited about it and really competitive. But overall, it was a great activity, and I hope that other people enjoy it. So that way, if you are that 6th or 7th grade Spanish teacher, maybe at Farnsworth, and then someone over at Horace Mann says, hey, I want to try to do that too, now they have a guide and they can start somewhere with what you already had accomplished. So great opportunity for that, and it also helps you find the things that you're interested in, so that way you don't feel as overwhelmed by technology that you might be being forced to learn in some sense. So the importance of, the importance of lifelong learning in technology is definitely important. Continued learning for each of you is incredibly important as we navigate this ever-evolving technological space. But what about your students? As educators, you are here to help them learn, help them grow, and coach and mentor them to become both good people in our physical world here, but the digital world as we have engaged conversations about digital citizenship and being safe and smart and responsible online. And this is a lot of responsibility for all of you, and it also has great ramifications for your students. As you prepare to educate them for their adulthood lives, whether, like I said, it's going to college, seeking higher education, going to the military, or going to the workforce right away, these are the skills that they need to be successful. So it's incredibly important to leverage technology for lifelong learning. So this is the fun part that I get to talk about here, which is all the cool new things that are coming from Google. So I met with the Google for Education team as I was planning for this whole event today. Got to meet quite a few of them. Mike knows them pretty well, which is pretty cool to have that come full circle as well. But all the things you see up here on the screen are all the new features that they have created in just the last year for you to start working with, which is pretty incredible. You might feel like, wow, that's a lot. That's kind of overwhelming. But you'll have to, you can work through, and you have great people here to help you figure these out. When I met with them, it was pretty evident to me that they're just as passionate about education as many of you are, because many of them started as teachers in classrooms working with kids for many years, and then decided, hey, I'm ready for a change of pace. Where can I go? And they decided, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to still be really passionate about education and build those tools that I wish that I had as teachers when I was working in the classroom. So the first one I want to share with all of you is Google Practice Sets. And I believe there is a session about this later this afternoon. So if you find this really interesting, I highly recommend that you take a look at it. But Practice Sets is a really cool, exciting new feature because it's one of the first ones that leverages the capability and power of Google Artificial Intelligence on the back end. So this is something that the Google for Education team is incredibly passionate about, because we've been a little not afraid, but just cautious about putting artificial intelligence in the hands of 12-year-olds and 8-year-olds and all those types of things, just because who knows where it's going to lead them, right, or what it's going to tell them. So this is a really great implementation of it, and I have a short video for you all to show you a little bit more.
Learning is personal. Students stay more engaged and learn more effectively when they get feedback right away. But one-on-one help for each student isn't always possible with the learning tools that exist today. For educators, having a round-the-clock tutor for each student that could help them grade classwork and give insights into student comprehension would be ideal. That's why we're creating a new tool in Google Classroom called Practice Sets, which enables educators to create interactive assignments from their existing content or from scratch. Students can get help as they answer questions, and teachers can get automated insights to know where students are getting stuck. Let's take a look at how it works. Once teachers create practice sets using existing content or by writing their own questions, our adaptive learning technology identifies the relevant learning skills for each question and finds relevant hints and resources that will be available for students if they need help. With all the typical question types like multiple choice and short answer, practice sets also have a built-in math keyboard and use our adaptive learning technology to enable equivalent answers for robust auto-grading. Teachers assign practice sets in Google Classroom like any other assignment. Students open practice sets right from an assignment in Google Classroom. As they work, auto-grading lets them know right away if their solution is correct, which helps build confidence, keeps them engaged, and prevents one misunderstanding from impacting the entire set. If they don't get a question on the first try, built-in hints help them along. When a student is unsure of where to start, they can open a resources section, which provides recommended videos and concept cards for each learning skill. Additional features include designated space to show their work, allowing them to demonstrate understanding while giving their teacher visibility into their thinking. For assignments created with practice sets, you will have enhanced features in the Classroom Grader view. Teachers get a quick view of class performance and can see student work for every attempt they make per problem. Automated insights reveal class-wide trends, so teachers gain visibility and can adjust their teaching plan if many students struggle with the same question or concept. With practice sets, students get the help they need faster, and teachers get actionable insights about their class. We understand that no two learning journeys are the same, so we're building tools that work for you.
So that's practice sets. Pretty cool, right? Quite a bit of power in just one tool, especially leveraging artificial intelligence, giving helpful hints for students along the way, and allowing them to show their work so that we can better understand and get insights on how your students are comprehending the material in your classrooms. There is a session about that, so if you're interested, check it out. Another one that we have that's coming out is really cool as well, and this is YouTube assessments. So this is a great collaboration between YouTube and Google Classroom that allows you to find any YouTube video that you find appropriate for your students, and along the way you can create meaningful questions that engage them and gauge the learning and comprehension as you go. So that you can see on the screen here, I have an example going through with photosynthesis. So this is really cool that you can take it no matter whether you're a kindergarten teacher and want to help students learn basic things like, hey, what does a car look like? What does a dog look like? All those types of things. Or maybe you're teaching AP biology in North or South, and you want to really test your students on their comprehension and understand learning in a different way, but use a video as a different format of instruction. So really a cool feature here that gives you the opportunity to do that. Maybe even if you have students in special cases where they might be out sick or maybe on a family vacation because everybody wants to take spring break the week before spring break, right? And you want to still be able to make sure that they can keep up with your content before they leave or while they're gone. Great way to have a lesson that they can engage in just as much as if they were in the classroom. So there have been successful technology integrations in education right here in Sheboygan, and several examples of them. Many of you, and I think just about all of you as educators now have access to MacBooks instead of the iMac desktops. And I believe this was a transition that might have even started just as I was leaving North. But this gives you great portability, much faster, newer machines, a lot lighter. And if you're one of those students who travels between different buildings in the district, this is great, right? Because now you can have everything that comes with you all in one. And if you leverage the extra capability of Google Drive, you'll have all those files on your desktop and on your device backed up right there. So should you accidentally drop it out of the car as you're going between districts or between buildings, excuse me, you still have all those files backed up there for you and nothing's lost. Legos, no surprise there, right? Who would have guessed? Legos are coming to the classroom this year. After a successful implementation, as Mike said last year, bringing Lego kits, and I'm a little jealous about this. I might want to turn back the time if I could. Anyone have a time machine so I can participate in the Legos? I loved Legos as a kid, so really cool that this is making its way into the classroom. New line boards are replacing some of those smart boards at certain schools, and I'm sure the IT team is super excited about this because those smart boards can be a bear sometimes to manage. But the new line boards give you a great modern interface with modern capabilities in some ways that smart boards didn't have, allowing you to integrate and work with that in a much better medium, as well as having those modern user interfaces like a smart TV would at home, so it's a little bit easier for you to use and understand. One more feature that I think was definitely worth an honorable mention was the new feature in Google Classroom that allows you to export a class. So say you take a class, you build out the template for it, all of the different pages, you have all of your content in there, and you want to maybe say, hey, you teach 6th, 7th, 8th grade English, and you want to copy and paste that so that we can follow that same format across all of your classes. Or maybe you and another teacher both teach freshman algebra, and you want the same content for each of your classes so that way all of your students are getting the exact same experience no matter which class they're in. Now you can create it together, export it, and then import it on that other teacher's side so that way you both have the same content and you don't have to duplicate the work. So a huge time-saving feature for all of you. You can even invite other teachers to this so that way they can collaborate with you. So a huge, huge improvement with Google Classroom. So encouraging active learning in the digital era. As teachers, you might have a little bit of a paradigm shift with this, and it might be a little uncomfortable at first, but many of you are here because you're willing to embrace the change and maybe even curious about it and not sure about it yet, but on the fence. And that'll be okay. But as all this technology comes to the classroom, you have so many new opportunities to engage your students with Quizlet and Kahoot and all these different types of activities. And you also have Chromebooks, and students have the capability to use this as a blank canvas to demonstrate their capabilities in learning. So as Mike mentioned, last year was very much a Fried theme, and we had Amy Mayer here from Fried Tech who talked about her Fried approach to learning, very much like the flipped classroom type approach. It allowed students to take their devices and the technology they've been given as a blank canvas to say, hey, here's what I'm capable of, here's my learning, and integrate that with the technology that they have. So I think it was a great philosophy, and hopefully many of you found that helpful because I think it's definitely relevant to the work that you're able to do and the technology that you have on tap. So many of you know some of these tools already, but I wanted to go through and give you a couple different examples of use cases that have been successful with integrating learning into the classroom. So as I mentioned, Quizlet, Kahoot, and Quizzes, great tools to engage students with learning, maybe go through vocabulary questions and make all that kind of stuff. There's Storybird and Pixton, which, as I was learning about this, was actually pretty cool. So you can create digital stories for your students to go through. So maybe you create a story about, all the different things you find in the city for younger students, and they get to go through and immerse themselves of, hey, here's what a car looks like, here's the neighbor's dog, here's all the different plants that might be in the park. And they get to go along and learn as they go. And on the flip side, the students can also create this and say, hey, here's a story, maybe you're learning about some literary theme in an English class. And you can say, hey, here's all the different things that we understood from this lesson and this theme that you were trying to teach us. And they created their own story that maybe was based off of the one that you used as the teaching example. So really cool tools with that. Besides artificial intelligence, the other big buzzword in tech right now is augmented and virtual reality. So if you're doing this, somehow you're cool right now. But there's the Apple Vision Pro, Reality Pro headset things, whatever they're called now, as well as the Oculus headsets that you can use as well. And I believe you have some of those here available. But this takes your students to new places, right? I mean, how many of you would want to drive 3 hours to O'Hare, then get on a 13-hour plane ride to Paris with your students, and then go see the Eiffel Tower, right? Might not be as great of a time managing. Yeah, might not be as great of a time managing 30 students on a plane ride for 13 hours. But you are able to take them virtually to Paris and be able to interact with the Eiffel Tower. The San Diego Zoo is doing some really cool stuff with this as well. So you can go through their aquatic section, and it's actually like you're swimming with all the different fish and animals that are in the ocean, all the whales and all that kind of stuff. So that's a really, really cool opportunity to work with your students as well. There's Socrative, which allows you to do more of a formative assessment and get real-time feedback from your students on how they're doing with the questions you asked. And then, as we mentioned, there's Legos and the Ozobots as well that have been around for a little bit. And those allow you to take hands-on learning and different types of tools to engage your students, maybe even a toy-based format for them, so that way they can get hands-on with some of this tech that they have available in the classroom. So this morning we have discussed the technological tidal wave that has taken technology or has taken the classrooms by storm and made a splash on education. I shared a strategy with all of you for leveraging thought leadership and content creation as a method to stay relevant in your classrooms. And I hope that that's helpful for all of you and you're able to integrate that as well and take that energy that you have started here at TechKnow today and carry that on throughout the school year. Google's working on some really exciting new tools, as you saw with a little taste of them with practice sets and YouTube assessments, as well as there's the new Google app for education app hub that allows you to see apps that have been curated for you by your district administrators that that, hey, here's a one-stop shop for all the tools my students have access to them. And then you can go from there and say, hey, here's what they have. I can create stuff off of this knowing that they'll have access to it and be able to work with it. And then finally, we talked through some successful integrations for active learning in cases of that in your classroom. So I hope you all have a great day of learning here at TechKnow. There's some fantastic sessions that are going to be going on today. What a great day of learning that we have on tap. So I hope you all take advantage of it. And thank you so much for having me here this morning.